Ross Mullan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Julie.
Hi. So we've known each other. I tried to track the exact date that we met, and I couldn't do it. We've known each other virtually for years now.
Yeah, like what? I mean, my timeline is really strange in my head. 5, 6 years, maybe?
Perhaps, yeah, exactly. And the reason I wanted you on this podcast is because one thing that all of my guests have in common, and some of them are scientists, some of them are blacksmiths, some of them are historians, some of them are actors, and some of them work as crew on movie sets. And the one thing
Hmm.
they all have in common is that they have non-traditional jobs. They have a passion for something that's very unique, and you fall into that category. You're not only an actor, but you're an actor who seems to have specialized in monsters, which is
Yes.
very interesting. And of course, the role that you're most known for is the White Walker in Game of Thrones.
Hmm. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. Uh, but just to start, I want to talk a little bit about your background because I do know that you're originally from Canada. I know that you grew up in
Hmm.
Montreal, and I know
Yeah.
that you went then to Ottawa and you did some work with Odyssey Theatre, who happens to be my favorite theater company here in Ottawa. Tell me a little bit
Ah,
about that.
well, yeah, I grew up in Montreal. I come from a place called Ville d'Anjou, which is in the east end of the city, and I always wanted to be an actor. But prior to that, when I was 4 or 3, I think even, I really wanted to be a cartoon character. Most specifically, I wanted to be a monster on Scooby-Doo. That was my first desire as a little boy. And my mom said to me, "Well, that's all well and good, but you can't actually be a cartoon character, but you can be an actor." So once I got it into my head to become an actor, that was it. I was away with it until I was about 12 or 13 when my parents finally buckled and gave me lessons. They sent me out to private classes in a place called Children's Theatre in the West End of Montreal once a week. It's a place where William Shatner actually trained as a child actor. And from the age of 13 till 16, I had private lessons and was trained in all kinds of crazy plays like Suddenly Last Summer, very adult pieces like Tennessee Williams' Suddenly Last Summer, or we did Shakespeare, and we did all these like crazy, wild sort of adult plays. And that was my introduction to theater. Then I went to drama school at John Abbott College, where I excelled actually in mask performance. We just took out masks one day. I think it was in my second year of drama school. No, it was my third year of drama school, and I really excelled in mask, commedia dell'arte mask in particular, where
Right.
the characters were very grand and over dramatized, um, and this to me was as close as I could get to becoming a cartoon character, really. And then after John Abbott College, I went on and studied at Ryerson in Toronto. And in my second year at Ryerson, when the summer was coming up, I had to get a summer job. I noticed on the board at the theater school an ad for an audition for Odyssey Theatre in Ottawa, and they were looking for actors who specialized in mask performance. And I thought, this is it, I can do it. I couldn't get an audition. I crashed the audition. Laurie Stephen, who's the artistic director at Odyssey Theatre, told me there was no places for me to audition. So, I might be waiting all day and be out of luck. But after about 3 hours, she came into the auditioning waiting room and said to me, "Here's your chance. Someone didn't show up. Would you like to come in?" I auditioned. And after a long period of recalls and her thinking it over and over and over, she decided to hire a very young actor to join a lot of older actors in my first season at Odyssey Theatre, which was for production of Moonlight Mischief. And
Do you
thus
remember what
began,
year that was?
gosh, that was 1989, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, 1989. And I worked with some fantastic actors who were on the scene at the time. They were really brilliant. Janet Snetzinger, I don't think she's no longer in the scene. Bernard Aran, uh, it was a really fantastic time for me. It was amazing because all the actors were much older than me, and I was really cutting my teeth in understanding what it was to be a physical performer. But it started my kind of foray into very, very, very physical acting, and I worked for them for 4 seasons. And then I just kind of up sticks and moved to London, England
That's something
for
that I read about, and I was like, how does someone decide? I mean, the kind of mental capacity, not capacity, but, that kind of mental game that you have in your head, like, of perhaps moving to a completely new place, not just within Canada, but just leaving Canada altogether.
Yeah, well, what happened was I actually got sick. My lung collapsed while I was doing a show, not at Odyssey Theatre initially, although that did happen eventually. My lung collapsed while I was doing a kids' show touring around Ontario to get my equity card. And it was something called a pneumothorax. I recovered from it very quickly, but then it reoccurred again while I was doing Odyssey Theatre that summer. And I had to pull out of the show and have a full operation so that it wouldn't reoccur. And while I was in the
Wow.
hospital, I decided that the universe was giving me a sign that I should move on. And I was going to initially move to America, to New Orleans. I thought, I'm going to move to New Orleans. And I don't know what I was thinking. I just thought, I'm going to move to New Orleans and it's going to be amazing. And my father, who is from Northern Ireland, said to me, well, you don't have a green card, so that wouldn't be such a great idea because you wouldn't be able to work there. Why don't you get your British passport and go over to Europe and take a year off and do what some kids do and travel around Europe? And you could work in the UK if you wanted to. And so I did that. And once I got better, I healed up. The September of 1991, I packed my bags and I moved to London. I'd only been there once when I was 12. I didn't like it. I arrived, I walked through the streets of Soho, and I thought to myself, I'm home. That's the first thing I
Wow.
thought. I thought, I am home. I didn't feel at home in Toronto. I didn't feel at home in Ottawa. But the streets of London reminded me of the streets of Montreal, old Montreal. There was something in the eccentricity of the city that reminded me of Montreal. And I just thought, this is my place. This is my vibe. This is my place to be. And I thought, whether I become an actor or not here, it's irrelevant. I'm going to stay here and live here. And everything from that moment on was a good decision, following my heart. It was
And
like a calling.
that's the thing that I always advise young actors or young artists. It's get out of Canada, at least
Hmm.
to experience what it's like to work in a different milieu or to live in a different place or get acquainted with a new culture or get a mentor that's not in your immediate surroundings. I think that that's a
Mm,
very good thing to do. A lot of people do go and they do come back, but a lot of people like yourself stay because you found your
yeah.
home overseas.
I think if it's your calling, some people are really, it's interesting, as I get older, I meet people from all over the world. I go to small towns, I go to big cities. And it's interesting how people are like, no, I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life, where I grew up in this small little town. And I think, I guess if that's your calling, if that's who you are, I suppose. Like I had uncles who lived in Northern Ireland on a farm where my dad grew up, who never left Northern Ireland their whole lives. They never, one of my Uncle Sam really never even left his farming village, but I wouldn't say he wasn't world worthy. He was world wise. He had his own kind of version of the world, and it was beautiful and different. Certainly not mine, but we shared something as well. So it's different, I think, for a lot of people. But I think if you're an artist, it's very valuable to move. It's a very, very valuable thing to do, to move around, to travel, to see the world, to open your eyes, and to challenge your mind.
Absolutely. I think it adds a lot to the artist's repertoire to be
Yeah.
able to, especially as an actor, especially because you might have a role one day that you'll be like, "Oh, I remember seeing this in,
Mm,
when I was visiting Mozambique or something," and you
yeah.
incorporate that into your acting repertoire. So your family, it sounds like your family was actually very supportive of you becoming an artist, becoming an actor.
Yeah, they were. I mean, my father really wanted me to be a hockey player, which was not
So
gonna
Canadian.
happen. So Canadian. Um, he's very sporty, my dad. But yeah, when I was 13, we got into a big argument. I was actually not bad at hockey. I was on the All-Star team and we were down in Boston and I twisted my ankle and we got into this big fight in the car coming home to Montreal. I'll never forget it. And he said, you should never go on the ice when you've hurt yourself. You should never go on the ice after you've injured yourself. You should always, he was trying to look after me and tell me something. And I said, I only went on the ice for you. And he said, well, don't go on the ice for me. You should be going on the ice for you because, you should want to play. And I said, I don't want to play. I only play hockey for you. And he was like, well, don't play hockey for me. Play hockey for you. And I said, I don't want to play hockey. I want to be an actor. He was like, when did
Aw.
this come up? And I said, I've been saying this for 10 years. I was like 13. And I've been saying it since I was 3, but you're not listening. And then he went very silent. And then when we got home, he threw my equipment into the basement. He said, you'll never play hockey again. We'll sell the equipment on Monday. You look through the phone book, you tell me where you want to take acting classes, and you can go there. So that's
Wow,
what
that's
happened, really.
impressive.
It was impressive and terrifying, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like that thing that parents do sometimes where it's like I felt like he supported me, but I also felt like he was going, "Go ahead, you'll fail, you'll see." Ha-
Oh,
that's how it felt.
okay.
However, in my second year at drama school at John Abbott College in Montreal, we did a production of Bertolt Brecht's. It's a piece called Brecht on Brecht, and a col- um, it's a collection of his short plays, poems, excerpts from plays and pieces that he's done in writing and stuff. It was very heavy, very World War II oriented, very Holocaust oriented, and it was very Brechtian. Basically, it was very intense,
Mhm.
very about fascism and dictatorship, and it was at Christmas time. And we got into the car after the show, and my mom said, "Well, that wasn't very Christmassy, was it?" And I sat there and I thought, here I was slogging my guts out doing this show. And
Oh,
there was
man.
silence. And my father said, well, it wasn't very Christmassy, but I can tell you this, you chose the right career. You're doing the right thing.
Wow, I got shivers just listening to that. That's a
He's,
moment,
yeah,
isn't it?
he said, you were very good. You knew what you were doing in that. And, my mom said to me, you're very smart when it comes to acting. That also moved me. I was 18. So, yeah, they always supported me. They always had my back. They didn't know anything about acting. That was their thing. We don't know anything about
Nice.
acting. We don't know nothing about this career. So we can't help you. But I'll tell you, they did whatever they could to help me. They just, yeah, they just always had my back. And moving here to London, when I decided that this would be it, that this is where I was going to live, I said to my mom, I came home for 9 months after living here for a year and a half, and I said, I got to go back. It's where I live. It's where I've got to go. And the day I was leaving, I said, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe this isn't right. And she said, you just get on that plane and you go. I didn't have children so they could sit at home and watch me grow old. You can always come home if you really need to. We'll always have your back. You're going to do amazing. So just do it, you know?
That kind of support goes so far. It goes
Mm-hmm.
so far for young actors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of actors grow up in families where they really don't. I mean, they almost have to break up with their parents in order to pursue their dreams. So I think it's beautiful
And you
that
do.
yeah,
You
that your
do.
parents did that.
Yeah, you do. My first drama teacher at John Abbott College, George Popovich, he said to us on our first day, he said, there's two things you're going to have to do here. You're going to have to forget everything you learned before you came here from high school and elementary school. You have to forget it all because you were taught to do things without failing. Here, I want you to fail. The other thing I want you to do is forget everything your parents told you. Give up the idea of security. Give it up completely. You can't be safe and secure in this industry. This is an industry filled with, the fear of the unknown, and you have to want to embrace that. So, my parents really had no idea what I was kind of going into, and they were scared too. They just wanted the best for me. So their support meant an awful lot. A lot of times I come home and tell them what I've learned or what I was doing, and they just thought, this is crazy. This stuff is just crazy shit, man. It just, it's the 80s and the early 90s, and they were like conservative-ish parents. They were
Right.
concerned about me, but they were also like, listen, we know this is making you happy. We know this is where your love is. So we want to be here alongside you. And, never perfect, but they were always there for me. Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned the lack of job security in this
Mm,
career. And
hmm.
were you scared at the time about that particular facet of the industry, which is you audition, you audition, you audition, you audition, right? There's nothing really
Yeah.
confirmed until you actually get a role. And even then, sometimes you don't get paid on time and things like that. There's a lot of insecurities to deal with in this industry.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're no longer afraid of, or is that something that took time to get used to?
It takes time to get used to that. I mean, I also believe that it's really important not only to travel the world, but to do other jobs. I also was an orderly when I was 16 years old. My mom made me go and work in the hospital she worked in, cleaning elderly people, feeding them, and looking after them and changing their diapers when they'd soiled themselves. Um, these jobs, I waited tables, I've worked call centers. I am currently greeting and hosting people coming into train stations at the moment in London. I love doing
Okay.
Joe jobs. I will do a Joe job in a heartbeat because I meet everyday people, and that to me is what this business is about. My father said something to me really amazing though as well in the early part of my career too. He said, because my father worked in an oil refinery for 40 years, and he said, you know what? At least you don't have to see the same people for 35 years. So
That is so true. You don't have
he
a boss
said,
that watches over you all the time.
yeah, he was like, you know what? It must be nice to just go into a different place every so often. I've lived through a couple of recessions in this country and one in Canada. Um, we're living through this pandemic at the moment. I think my career has really helped prepare me for this, right? Like it's when the world sort of falls apart through recessions and pandemics like this, and job security goes out the window and people want to jump off buildings, I'm a bit like, hey man, that's kind of what happens to me every 4 months. I lose my
Mhm.
job. I gotta think I don't have anything around the corner, or do I? Or maybe what am I gonna do? I have to just make do. Got to make it happen. Got to so like on Friday, tomorrow, well, tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow, I go down to Cannon Street Station here in London, and I'm greeting people coming into London from Kent. And then on Friday, I'm going in for my screen test for a vampire movie I'm doing. So there you go.
Amazing.
And today I'm doing an interview about my illustrious career. And every drop of my career is something I'm very proud of. I have no shame about. I think a lot of actors, if they've experienced a little bit of success like I have, even they become very ashamed that they have to go back and maybe do wait tables or do an extra job. I think, wow, what a great opportunity to meet the public, chat to them,
This is what
Meet
I'm
other
hearing
people.
actually. Yeah, this is
Love
what
it.
I'm hearing in the industry in LA, which is that a lot of people who are out of work in LA are driving Uber or they're cleaning
Yeah.
hotel rooms or things like that because even the big names are doing that. There's some big name actors that are actually
Hmm.
going out and doing, regular Joe jobs, like you said, because
Yep.
it gives them, it also gives them a purpose because to go from working all the
Yes.
time to nothing is
Mhm.
also very difficult.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
always think
experience that?
yeah, oh God, yes. And I have my periods where I don't have to work at all. Like I didn't really have to take this job. I just thought it was better for money coming in than going out, but also I do like meeting people. I think it's good for perspective. It keeps you real a bit too. It keeps your feet on the ground. I really think that's important for whatever type of actor you may want to be or performer or celebrity you want to be. I don't know. It's good to connect with people. It's so important. Otherwise, I don't know, you become a bit of a jerk sometimes.
That too,
You
yeah.
can just become a jerk, really. I think there's a great story in that documentary, about backup singers. What's it called? 6 feet from Stardom. Do you know it? Not sure
Yes, I
you.
think it was on, Netflix, I think, for a while.
Yeah, and there's a backup singer, and she worked cleaning hotels for years after she had a hit single of some, pop song in the 60s. And she was cleaning a room in a hotel and she heard her song come on and she just thought, hey man, that's me. Like, that's
Mhm.
me. And then she just thought, what am I doing? Like, I got to get back to work. And there's something really lovely about that. Like, when I went out to who knew when I was going to be working again with this pandemic? So I just went out to stations and I thought, good, be humble and do a job. Get out there with the people. This is who you are. And then, after a few shifts, I just thought, like, hey, man, like, I got to get back to work at some point. It was like, I got to make a movie. I've got to do some theater. I've got to be creative again. There's something about being amongst people away from your industry that wakes you up again, too. It inspires you to want to go amongst the people and tell your story or make their day. And I do cameos as well. I don't know if you know what cameos are. They're
I
just like
was,
little.
actually gonna plug you at the end of the
Oh
of the
well,
podcast,
plug
yeah.
book me on cameos.
Go
But
ahead and
they're
talk about it right now if you'd like.
they are really actually super lovely to do. People wonder why celebrities do them, but they're actually really lovely to make
Let's just
somebody's day.
explain what it is.
Well, it's a shout out or a happy birthday, basically, to a friend or a pep talk sometimes to someone who's feeling low that you might book. So you would book me as either, you book me as Ross Mullan. I'm the White Walker from Game of Thrones. And I would literally say, hi Brenda, this is Ross. I played the White Walker from Game of Thrones. Happy birthday. Like, George told me it was your birthday and wants you to know he's thinking about you. And, you kind of, um, you're kind of just making people's day a bit. And it reminds you of how important your work was that you did on Game of Thrones or Doctor Who or any of the stuff you've done. It's lovely. I know what that's like as a person to really admire, as a gay kid growing up in Montreal, um, there wasn't a lot of that around me, So when I saw that in television and movies, I felt they were speaking to me, When I was watching Bewitched or watching the Sonny and Cher show, I thought they were talking to me,
Mhm.
telling me, get out of the suburbs, be who you are. And Cameo and a lot of this connection is about that. Being a performer was a lot about that. I wanted to inspire others around me to know it's okay to be you, man. To do the right kind of work that makes people alive and move, whatever shakes them and gets them out, you know? To tell them
I find
that,
it
yeah,
Sorry, Ross. I find it
that's okay.
interesting that you felt at home in London at first when
Hmm.
it was London, correct?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you came okay, so it was London. So you felt at home there, and now
Hmm.
do you find that you feel at home with the people you've always wanted to work with? Because now you're with people who think the same way, who like who are creative, who are energized and you know, whether it's makeup artists or production
Yes.
people, it's just you're part of a grander team now.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I filmed 2 weeks ago. I did a little filming on an ITV drama about Marilyn Monroe, and it was so wonderful to be back with a team of artists, makeup team, costume, crew, cameramen, lighting guys, directors. It just felt like I'm home. I'm helping create and tell a story, most importantly, a story about an actress who wasn't treated very well by the industry. We were, there trying to right the wrongs of the industry to some degree for her
Mhm.
life, to tell her story, hopefully the best we could. Um, so yeah, I do feel at home with them, definitely. I feel like that is my place in this world, for sure.
Can we talk about Game of Thrones for a minute?
Yeah, for sure.
It is probably your most, iconic role, for sure. I mean,
Absolutely,
that's a
yes.
role that's gonna live on in whether it's merchandise or board games or statuettes or whatever. I see White Walkers
Yes.
all the time, even long after the episodes have aired.
Yeah, yeah.
How does it feel to have played such an iconic character?
Um, it feels not like I thought it would feel, I guess. Um, it feels fantastic and marvelous and humbling and beautiful, and in some ways not mine entirely, because the White Walker is created by a team of incredible makeup artists, designers, a team of the creators of Game of Thrones themselves, Dan and Dave, George R. R. Martin. So the White Walker is something that's, belongs to a lot of people. I'm the guy who's in embodying him. So I hold the mantle for him, but there's a long list of people behind me. But that's actually the way it feels around a lot of everything that you do. Well, I realize now as I get older, like when I think, I loved Samantha from Bewitched, and I thought, it's her show. But
Mhm.
really, I realized it was probably not her show. It was the show of the network, the producers, the writers, the creators. A lot of people go into creating your character. No more is more obvious than the White Walker, who I literally have a team of people walking around with me on set, touching me up, fixing my hair, making me look exactly as I should be. They sent me out for horseback riding lessons. So there's a stunt team around who taught me how to ride bareback. Um, it was a fantastical experience for me. And I had no idea at all what I was going into, because I actually didn't want to necessarily do the job at the beginning, which is interesting.
Really?
Yeah, I had come out of doing the remake of Clash of the Titans, which was my first big prosthetic job. I played one of the witches, one of the blind
Right.
witches in Clash of the Titans. I don't know if you know the movie, but there's
Yes.
three blind witches who share an eyeball. So it's all the eye, give me the eye, all that stuff. And I was wearing 40 pounds of prosthetics and could only breathe through my mouth, not through my nose, and I couldn't see anything. I was completely blind. Um, it was excruciatingly hot on set. We were using real fire and real steam. And it was a big, 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 big challenge for me to get through that shoot. We were at one point, all three of us collapsed. We were taken out, we were overheating, cut out of our suits, ice packed. My heart was racing, thought I was going to die. If it wasn't for the late Richard Zanuck, who's the son of the great Daryl Zanuck, not that Richard isn't great as well, but Richard Zanuck stepped in and took control of the production, cooled down the sets, literally told me that, he was going to go out and talk to the crew. And he said, listen, when you speak, that's me speaking. So I don't have to speak. You tell them what you need, and that'll be it. So he changed the nature of how we shot on set. But once I got to the end of that shoot, I thought, I will never do another prosthetic job again as long as I live. Ever, ever, ever. I thought, I'm glad I lived. Literally after the first day, I could barely even bring myself to go back and sit in the chair. 5 hours in makeup, 40 pounds of prosthetic on, boiling hot. you know, I was working with some great actors too, like Liam Cunningham and who was also in Game of Thrones. Um, what's Sam Worthington, Gemma Arterton, all these great actors on set with me, but I thought, God, get me out of here. I'm gonna die. um, when it was over, I thought, no, 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 I can never do this again. Well, a year later, Connor O'Sullivan, who does Creatures FX, contacted my agent and said I would like Ross to come down and audition for a show called Game of Thrones. It's for a prosthetic role. My agent got in touch with me and I was like, uh, no way. And she said, well, he said it's not going to be as bad as Clash of the Titans, so he wants you to hear him out. So I went down to Nina Gold's office and I said, I'm here for King of Thrones, I think it's called. And she went, oh, it's Game of Thrones. It's a really popular HBO show that's been on for a year now. And I went, oh, I was like, okay. I was like, sure, whatever. I went into a room with them all, and they wanted to show me loads of pictures and drawings and ideas and stuff that they had for the White Walker. Um, and very similarly to Clash of the Titans, they just wanted me to improvise off of photographs and ideas that they had, which I'm quite good at. I kind of was like, oh, well, this character sounds like this because he doesn't like babies, but he's from the north. He's sort of a zombie, but he's not really. I saw lots of amazing pictures. I couldn't help but be interested. It sounded fascinating. I did my audition, pretended I had a big sword in my hand when actually I had like, the inner tube of a holiday wrapping paper, one of those big long
Yeah.
tubes, cardboard tubes. That's what I used as a sword. I pretended I was going to kill a baby in the snow. It was all very hilarious and bizarre. That audition tape is somewhere. Um, and a couple of days later, oh, they also said to me, "Can you ride a horse?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." And they went, "Oh, have you ever been on a horse?" And I said, well, I have, but I don't want to get on a horse unless I know what I'm doing. So you might want to get somebody else to do this. And they then, whispered amongst themselves. And then they came back and they said, if we sent you out on lessons, would you be up for doing it? And I said, absolutely. If you want to send me out on lessons. God, I was like 43 or 44. I thought, why do you want to send a middle-aged guy out to learn how to ride a horse? I'm sure there's an actor to do it somewhere. So, like my idea of the show wasn't really anything because I hadn't watched it. Then I got the job and then I watched the show, the first season, and I thought, whoo, okay, this is an interesting
Yeah.
show with a very good season finale. And I kept being told, like, you're going to be the season finale of season two. You're going to be the season finale of season two. And then I was like, okay, wow, the season finale. And I realized, there's nothing like my character in this show. Yet there was a lot of chit chat around Winter is Coming in the first season, a lot of build up to them. I thought, well, this could be something really big. So when we shot it, I realized, okay, this is going to be a big, big, big reveal, and as it proved, it changed my career. So I can only thank
Yeah.
it and the production enough, it's been an amazing experience for me.
It changed your career, but I find it actually even more interesting that the creators thought of you. So you didn't see like an ad anywhere, or it wasn't word of mouth. It was
Oh
literally,
God, no.
get me Ross's agent. We want him to come in and audition. So already your career had changed.
Yeah, well, it was really Connor O'Sullivan, who's the head of Creatures FX, who wanted me. You see, what his side of it would be that he had worked with me on Clash of the Titans. I didn't walk out on that show, right? I didn't walk out
Ah.
on that production. I sat through that without buckling or breaking down. I was the right size and build for the White Walker. And so he thought, bring it in. I want, I'd like, and he knew he could work with me because the problem with prosthetics, it's 5 hours in makeup, 12 hours of shooting, 2 hours out of makeup. You go back to the hotel, have a glass of wine, a cry, have a little sleep, and get back in the chair at 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's not everybody who can do that, including stuntmen. It's not everyone who can
Right.
do that. It takes some willpower, and I thrive on less sleep sometimes. I mean, I only ever really sleep for 5 or 6 hours. I can catch a nap here and there whenever I'm, just sort of sitting down. I nap really easily. Um, so it was a concoction of things. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily super keen on me, but Connor certainly wanted to put me to the forefront and say this guy won't bottle it. He'll show up and do the job. So
That's
I had a
a
good
very
in.
important thing. The work
Yeah.
ethic, the fact that you stuck with it even though you hated it in that moment is very important because
Yeah.
it can lead to other opportunities like you did
Mm,
with Game of Thrones. And then
yeah.
you got into Doctor Who.
Oh yeah. And that's even weirder. I mean, that's even more bizarre. That's because they got in touch with me because I was the White Walker, obviously. But they wanted me to replace some actors who weren't able to show up for certain gigs. So my first job in Doctor Who was doing the Doctor Who proms at the Royal Albert Hall, which is a big musical class, like orchestrated music. They play all the music of Doctor Who and show clips of it and have characters and actors from the show show up at the Royal Albert Hall.
Okay.
And so I replaced the Ice Warrior for that. So I had my big share moment. I showed up in the middle of the Royal Albert Hall. I entered in a big block of ice, broke out of the ice with dry ice, fog machine, scaring the audience and walking through the audience as the Ice Warrior, replacing the actor who would normally have played it. That went very well. And then they asked me to replace one of the actors as the Silence in Matt Smith's very last episode that he ever filmed, which was really wonderful. And then they offered me a role that was created specifically, sort of, so it was my own little bespoke role, and it was playing the teller with Peter Capaldi. So I had these three really kind of iconic moments with Doctor Who. My auditions were odd, to say the least. I mean, for the Ice Warrior, I had to go up to Cardiff and try on the already existing costume at the Doctor Who Experience, which was like a Doctor Who museum up there, after hours, after it had shut. So it was a dark museum, and talk about Scooby Doo moment. I was in the monster section of the Doctor Who museum, surrounded by monsters with the costume girl, and she was trying to get the costume off of the rail, and she said, "Just get undressed." So I took off all my clothes to my underwear, and I was sat there, and she was like, "I'm really struggling with this bit. I'm just going to leave you alone for a minute and go and get some help." So there I was, all alone in my underwear, sat at the Doctor Who experience,
Oh my
thinking,
god.
this is really weird.
Yeah.
The costume fit, and I got the job. And very similarly with the Silence, I was told to just go, like, very last minute, to go to a hotel in Soho here in London and meet with a girl and a guy and try on this outfit, basically. I just showed up at this little hotel and I said at the front desk, Doctor Who? And she went, ah. She gave me a key to room 16. Go up, let myself in, knock, knock, knock on the door. A girl shows up with a costume. A guy shows up with the mask and the hands. We try it all on. It fits. She goes, does it fit? I was like, yeah. She was like, do you want the job? I was like, sure. She's like, okay, can you film on Friday? I was like, yes. And that's how I got that job. Like
Wow.
crazy.
It
I
seems very
know.
informal.
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes acting is just, very informal. You'd be really, really surprised. I mean, some of the stuff I shot for Game of Thrones with Michelle McLaren, who's an Emmy award-winning director. She's phenomenal. We didn't have my horse on the first day of shooting season 4, so she said, "Why don't you sit on a barrel on the back of this pickup truck? We'll get we'll get a fan, blow your hair." hold the baby, I'll dirty the shot with this piece of Hessian and bounce the pickup truck, like just, like kind of bounce it. And it'll look like you're riding a horse. Well, it's the shot they use of me riding the horse, basically, even though we did plenty of
Amazing.
shots afterwards with the horse. And while we were shooting, and I said, God, Michelle, this really seems very, she went, like a student film. And I went, yeah. She went, nothing wrong with a good student film. She's like, you think I haven't made a student film before? I was like, yeah, I guess so. So,
Yeah, those are the
yeah.
kinds of hacks that actually work. I have, Julian White, who I've already interviewed
Hmm.
on my Twitch live stream, but who's also coming back on the podcast. He was, one of the gaffers on,
Ah,
Game of
okay.
Thrones. Yeah, and also spoke a little bit with, Greg, who is a cinematographer, and I'm learning a lot more about the hacks,
Mm,
used in filmmaking, which is a lot of fun. So yeah,
yeah.
I'm actually not surprised to learn about that, about the
Oh, yeah.
DIY
All the
approaches.
cheats. Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Love all that.
exactly.
Love it. Yeah, I
Now
remember when we were
because
shooting also in season 4, she wanted it to look like we were shooting through ice. So they brought out these big blocks of ice that they had brought onto set. But when you're trying to shoot through blocks of ice, it doesn't look like you're shooting through blocks of ice. And they were like, well, we brought these blocks of ice. And she said, yeah, but when I'm shooting through it, it just looks blurry. What I want
of
it to
course.
do is it has to just look like that. And what looks like that is a whole lot of Vaseline all over the screen. That looks like ice more than
Right.
shooting through ice, you know? So there you
That's
go.
true. You've worked a lot of monsters.
I
You've done a
know.
lot of them. Now, is this
Hmm.
something that, you want to move away from at this point, or is this something you wanna continue doing because it's something that you are good at?
A little bit of both. I'm an actor, so I like the challenge of doing other things. So I'm producing a short film of a play that I performed a couple of years ago at the Oval Theatre here in London. It's a Romanian piece that was done in the mid 80s called Pocketful of Bread during the Ceausescu reign. It's very Waiting for Godot-ish. We're working on that right now. Hopefully shoot it as soon as we can. We're struggling with our director because he's a bit vulnerable and with this pandemic and COVID and
Of
all the
course.
rules and regulations, yada yada yada. But that's on the cards. Um, I have a vampire film I'm going to be shooting soon, and I'm got a screen test for on Friday. That's in the bag, and we're doing it. That's been on the go now for a year. We should have shot it by now, but because of COVID, it was put on hold. It's a beautiful script. It's fantastic. It's very romantic and also blood-curdlingly horrifying. Um, the role is beautiful. It's obviously a monster. It's a vampire. I don't have to wear so much prosthetic for it. They're going to use my own ugly face for it. And I've gotten to that age where I actually look like a 300-year-old vampire. So, um, I'd never say no to a monster role because it was the dream of my 4-year-old self to become a monster, right? Like that was the thing. Um, every time, like a couple years ago, I did a commercial and I was playing a space alien, and I was thinking, oh, do I really want to go to Madrid in the middle of the summer and get into this boiling hot suit? And I just thought, what would your 4-year-old self say? And he would say, "Oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. You're going to be
Right.
playing a space alien? Come on, like you can't turn this down." So I always look at the options in front of me through the eyes of myself, my former self, because as you get older, sometimes you think, "Oh God, like really? I don't know about this." Like even going back to Odyssey Theatre last summer, I was, invited back. I thought, "Oh God, do I really want to go back? It's so hot in Ottawa." And then I thought, but what would my 16-year-old say to myself? What would my old 16-year-old say? And he would say, that's amazing. Like you went forward and then you went back and then you went forward again, with your, the car of your life, you were able to do full circle. Can you do it again? Can you go back to the past? Can you rekindle the fire of a 19-year-old boy's first experience in his first theatrical job at the age of 52. Can you do it? And I was like, okay, this is what the universe is telling me to do. And I've always just followed my heart. I puppeteered for years here on television, only because I answered an ad in the paper in the early 90s with the Muppets and trained with Kevin Clash, who, played Elmo for years. Um, I trained as a puppeteer, didn't like it, but then I got into debt in the early 2000s, and this job came up to puppeteer a little blue bear on a quiet little sleepy Sunday television show. Get myself out of debt, and lo and behold, I got a spin-off series, a sitcom series off of it. And that character, Nev the Bear on Bear Behaving Badly, that character really altered my career, really, because without him, I never would have got through the door for Clash of the Titans and Game of Thrones.
And that
So
was
you
with,
never know.
Jim Henson, right? That
Well,
was
I
with
trained
Jim
with
Henson?
Henson, but
Okay.
this BBC show was a show that was in its own right. My agent had put me up for. Wasn't anything to do with Henson. But I had trained with Henson in the early 90s, with the Henson group, when they used to be based in London in the early 90s. They had the Creature Shop up in Camden here. But I didn't really like it so much, so but then then I ended up puppeteering for years, for like 6 years, just because I said yes. And I said yes only because I was in debt. And I just thought maybe I need to do this. Maybe this will save me. And it saved me. My career has a way of saving me sometimes. Um, Sometimes I just have to get out of the way, you know? Our brains often get in the way. If you think too much about something, it doesn't do you any good. You just got to go, okay, look, the world's telling you to do this job, just do it, right? You're being invited to
Right.
do it, just do it.
Absolutely. This is something that comes up very often. I think insecurity plays a big role in that
Oh
often.
yeah.
Insecurity and inexperience,
Hmm.
even once you become experienced at saying yes, or even experienced at saying no. I think at a certain
Oh yeah.
point,
Yep.
there's a reason to say one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what it is that outside of acting, what it is that you're learning about or wanting to learn more about these days. Are you, like you said, you're producing something now? So, is there
Yeah.
another role in that industry that you want to explore, or are you really bona fide, like you just want to do acting?
Um, I'm not that keen on producing. I kind of just figured, well, this is the way this will get done, as if we produce it, me and this guy. So, um, I might want to direct something on stage. I have an idea of something I want to do on stage. I teach a little bit too to animation students,
Okay.
unbelievably or believably, because uh, that also is very interesting. That just kind of fell in my lap, weirdly again, because I loved cartoons when I was a kid and wanted to be a cartoon character. So teaching animation students acting is a very interesting thing. I can kind of come from it from my organic experience. Um, I'm very drawn to people and therapies, and I love, the process of getting over stuff in life, addictions and things. I love talking to people about all kinds of things. I think my industry always kind of points me in the right direction. Like this vampire film has a lot of connections with addiction. And the last movie I did, Zoo Head, I was playing a doctor who was working on addictions and stuff. And addictions is something that's always fascinated me. Therapies, helping people. I don't know. At one point I thought I'll retrain and become a therapist. This was during
Mhm.
COVID, especially. I was thinking maybe this is what I should be doing. But I'm not so sure anymore. I think this is my calling, really. I think acting is my calling. Every time I try to step away from it, I get something that shows me that this is actually where I need to do my work, whether I know it
Right.
or not, if that makes sense.
It
This is where
absolutely
my
makes
best
sense.
work is done. Yeah.
You're not the only actor who's having this kind of, little dialogue with himself or
Yeah.
herself, you know?
Oh, I
Um,
know. Yeah.
there are
God.
other actors who are contemplating other jobs, and not just jobs to pay the bills, but also just maybe changing their vocation. This is
Mm,
actually it's interesting because this is an a great time to get to know ourselves better.
yeah. Yeah. It is. Oh, it's
Yeah.
amazing. And it has been amazing to get to know myself a bit better. Yeah, rethink. I mean, I love where I live in London. I love where I've chosen to be. The pandemic has helped me reflect so hugely through the years of my life. I mean, there was a period like for literally weeks where I could not stop tripping down memory lane. I was literally almost sunk into the past, but not in this negative or nostalgic way, but I was actually felt like I was there viewing my past. Um, and I was like, wow, I am so blessed. Like I've just not had time to kind of collect my thoughts and go, wow, what an incredible life I've lived. I I can't, people have often said that to me, like, you've had an incredible life. And I've just kind of thought, what? Like, I just go down to the pub like everybody else, and I just shop at Tesco like everybody else. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've had lunch with Sigourney Weaver, for God's sake.
Oh, she's
I
like
worked with
she's my
some,
favorite, Ross.
yeah, like, I worked with her on A Monster Calls. I worked with Liam Neeson on that, helping him with his motion capture. And when I met her, she walked into the room and she said to me, "Are you Ross Mullan?" And I went, "Yeah." And she went, "You're the White Walker on Game of Thrones." I went, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh, my daughter really wants to get into makeup and I'd love to pick your brain. We can have a moment. You want to chat?" And I thought, "Oh my God, like you're Sigourney Weaver." Like, what? What's going on? Like, what is happening here? Um, yeah, and so I had like a 2.5 hour conversation with her over lunch. I remember when I was a little kid watching her in Alien, like, I mean, I didn't,
Yeah.
I was like, what, 12 or 13 or something? It's just nuts, it's crazy. And we had a lot in common. And she loves Montreal, she loves London, and I also just thought, wow, she's just like, she's just actually a really cool person who loves to break bubble wrap, basically, which is what we were doing at one point, just kind of breaking
That's
bubble wrap.
hilarious. This is the thing, and this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast. It wasn't just to, talk to scientists and talk about or talk to artists. It was really to get to know the human being behind the passion and the
Mm,
expertise, which
yeah.
is, what I because one of the things I learned from my own little foray into filmmaking, which, contrary to yours, I discovered I did not enjoy as much, but I did end up working with my
It's so
heroes.
boring.
No, actually, I hated the, lifestyle. I didn't like the 16
Right.
hours on set lifestyle,
Oh,
but
I
I
mean,
ended
yeah,
up yeah, I ended up working with my heroes. I asked Pascale
yeah,
Bussière point blank if she wanted to be in one of my films, and she was like, "Yeah, no problem." And I was like,
yeah.
and I told her, "This is the you I came out because of you. I saw you in When Night is
Wow.
Falling." So I got to sit her at my dining room table and tell her that
Wow.
story. So there's something special about connecting with the people who were your heroes when you were young, or your
Yeah.
mentors, or whatever.
That movie
So
you
I think it's
mentioned, When Night
beautiful.
is Falling, what's that about?
Mhm.
Is that a
That
vampire
is,
movie?
no, it's not.
No.
That's, essentially a circus performer who meets a Catholic girl, and
Oh,
they fall
okay.
in love, and it
Because
was
what's that
directed
French
by
vampire movie from Montreal, which is so phenomenal?
oh, I don't
It's so
know.
good. I saw it years ago and I was like, and a girl I went to school with at John Abbott College, Jennifer Morehouse, who's a Montreal actress, was in it. And I was like, oh my God, this movie is amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
don't know that
cool.
one.
You know, it's such a difficult, I think it's a really difficult industry depending on what component you're in. Because I think directing and producing for for the film and television industry is like a whole different kettle of fish. I remember Meryl Streep being asked, once in an interview, how can like do you want to direct something? Do you want to produce something? And she was like, "No, I want to go home at 6 p.m." I just thought,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, because you don't like, when I finish my day acting, you can see then the producers and directors really start their day. And it's just like, yuck, I'm too tired. I want to go home and I don't want to think about something for 4 hours, but they're all consumed with it for the whole time, you know? They're drowning in it.
Yeah,
Hard
it's
work
a
that.
it's a very long and tedious process, and some people are
Oh,
built for it.
setting
I
up those
hear that,
shots and oh my God, yeah.
yeah, I hear that Ridley Scott apparently just does one after the other. He's built for it. That's
Yeah.
what he loves to do, and so it's like
Oh, there's
some
some
people are
people
made
who
for
are
it, some
just,
people
yeah.
are not, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, Ross, I wanna read this little quote by TS Eliot because I think it
Oh,
summarizes, uh, your story a little bit.
oh,
We shall not
beautiful.
cease
Okay.
from exploration. At the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time, which is really something that just came to my mind when speaking with you and hearing about you returning back to Ottawa and then realizing that no, the UK is my home, and then coming back to Canada
Yeah.
and doing a little bit of back and forth, even in your
Yeah.
career, which is
That's
really
beautiful. Thank you
interesting to
for sharing
learn.
that.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing your story.
Yeah, I hope you're over in London sometime. Oh, I hope I'm back in Canada sometime. God, I really want to see my family again, but I would love to meet up with you. You're in Ottawa, yeah?
I am back in Ottawa. Yeah, yeah, contemplating
Well,
a
we
move
have
to the
to
East
meet up.
Coast.
Okay, well, my nephew lives out there. I love the East Coast. Nova
Brilliant.
Scotia is out there. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in Europe. As soon as the restrictions are lifted, then we'll definitely head out to Europe,
Yes.
my partner and I.
Come
So it'd
visit
be
us.
beautiful. I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that.
London is
So,
quiet right now. It's hard to
yeah, I
believe,
bet.
but it's
I
quiet.
bet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, thank you very much for appearing on the show, and I wish you
Thank you
all
for
the
having me.
best. And
And you
we'll
too,
be in
Julie.
touch again soon.
All the best and much love.